We're taking your boxes that we've already done for your verbs, both that we've already learned. Eve said and said, remember, share the same exact box. I said we've done before, salud. And then out of the first set of notes that we did, querer venir and decir are the only new ones, but they fit with this family because if you see, all the yo form and the el ellos forms are technically AR endings with no accents. The rest are ER and IR endings. However, on the second set of notes that we went through, we do have some AR verbs that also use this set of endings. So what we're going to do today is put them all together, and I believe there's one extra verb that we haven't mentioned yet, so we can put them all together and see that every single one of these, every single one of the new ones, don't have accents because where you normally have accents, you have changed it to these new endings. Not supposed to be waking up? Alright, so for your new set of notes, not new set, but we're just putting them all together. You have page numbers at the top. Irregular preterite. It's still irregular in the sense that something changes about it, but you call it whatever you'd like. It would make more sense if you remember them as a whole stem change. So it's every single box, change the whole beginning part of the verb, not just different letters here and there. Okay? So they're not shoe, they're not boot changes, they're not basement, they're whole stem changers. Okay? But obviously still irregular because something happens that's different about them. But and you can also remember that they use different stems. So if you remember that they use the different stems with the different set of endings, then you'll remember that all of these basically go together. Okay? But again, what's in common between every single one is that there's not a single accent on any of them. Okay? Totally different stems, different endings, and no accents. You have page numbers 10, 12, 13, and 14 as reference. That's in your book for these. Now, what are your regular? The same ones that we learned beginning in Spanish 1. Regular ER and IR endings in the preterite sense. In the preterite. E, I with an accent. Iste. Mm-hmm. I-O, yo. Mm-hmm. And then accent on the O there. Inos, and then iste, señora. Okay. These are your regular endings. Are you going to use these endings with these new verbs? No. Technically you are for these three, but the two that are starred, you do not use those. Okay. So not same endings for the special verbs. Technically I listed on here that they're ER and IR endings, special ER and IR endings, but they're technically special endings for any AR, ER, IR verb because it's that and that are AR verbs that also use these endings. Okay. So what are the new endings we're going to focus on for just these verbs?
E.
Just E, the letter E. Okay, so E. Iste. And then again with no accent. O with no accent, then imos and yeron. Now I have a note on here about the verb decir. Remember that if the stem ends in a J, for that bottom right one, you're not going to do I-E-R-O-N, you're just going to do E-R-O-N. That happens for decir, and it will also happen for this verb traer, which is new. We hadn't had it in the previous set of notes. Traer is to bring, and the stem for it is T-R-A-J. So that one will also follow the E-R-O-N instead of I-E-R-O-N for the A-O-S-A-S box. But again, you're going to use this box with no accents where you normally have accents for AR, ER, and IR verbs, only for the ones that we're about to list though. Obviously not all verbs. Alright, let's do a practice one. Andar and estar, again, both AR verbs that use these endings, but what are your conjugations for estar? Good, estuve. Then? Good, estuviste. And estuvo, no accents. Then? Estuvimos, perfect. And? Estuvieron, good. Now for decir, conjugate decir to say or tell in the preterite. What's the stem, the beginning part? D-I-J, good. And then you put these new endings with it, so it would be D-H. Then? D-Step, good. And Dijo, no accent. Dijimos and dijeron. Careful with dijimos. There's lots of I's there in a row, so it's easy to miss an I there. So D-I-J for your stem and then I-M-O-S for your ending. I have a note right underneath to remind you, because remember that your test is not only going to be over the new stuff, it's also going to be over anything and everything that you know about preterite. So a note about dad. Do you remember what happened with dad in the preterite?
It has ER endings with no accent.
Good. So it's not using these endings, but the verb dad to give, just a note underneath to remind you, uses these regular ER and IR endings, but with just no accents there. Okay, so just a note about that one, since we'll probably see it again. Question?
Why is there no I in the hero?
It's the one that if the stem ends in a J, it's just E-R-O-N. Okay. But yes, good observation. Just E-R-O-N down here, not I-E-R-O-N. Follow the stem ending in a J. So, but the verb dad doesn't fit with this family of verbs. I just wanted to remind you because you're going to see that. It uses the regular endings with no accents. Yes.
Are those the only two verbs that
For the J one? Yes. For the ones we're covering, yes. So the seed and diet are the only ones whose stem, the whole stem ends in a J. And then for this box only, you're going to do E-R-O-N. Okay. For the ones we're covering, just those. What I want you to do is I want you to go through each of these and do the following. You're going to see the verb. I gave you the page number as a reference. Okay, but you have it in your notes. I want you to give me the stem, the whole stem of what it changes to. What is it for querer? Quis. Oh, Q-U-I-S. Okay. What does it mean? Want or wanted in the past tense. And if you want to add your alternate meanings, it can also mean refused, if you put a no with it, or it can mean tried in the past tense. And then I give you a subject, and you're going to conjugate the verb that obviously is there for the subject that I give you, which in this case is? Same. Good. Okay. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to fill that in with your stems, what they change to, the whole entire stem, the meaning, and then conjugate a few of those. And we'll practice it in just a second.